Hello everyone, and welcome to the BC launch event session introducing health and uptake monitoring of application features. My name is Yero Handzuk, and I'm a software engineer on the Application Foundation team. So let's take a look at the agenda for today's session. First, we'll discuss the need for monitoring application features to begin with. Then we'll discuss the solution that we suggest, feature telemetry. After that, we'll discuss how you can get the data emitted with feature telemetry. The next point is conventions that we follow with feature telemetry. Then we will discuss how using feature telemetry in your solution can be made possible. We'll talk about the extensibility model, and finally about some low-code, no-code applications of feature telemetry. So first of all, let's discuss what is really the need for feature telemetry. Why would you want to use it? And the answer to that is actually very simple. It's because the data from feature telemetry can be turned into actionable insights. What am I talking about? So I'll just guide you through some examples of actionable insights. For example, if the number of users discovering the feature is low, then it can be promoted via the Getting Started checklist or through blogs and articles. Another example, if the numbers of users setting up the feature is much lower than discovering, then the setup process can be improved by adding teaching tips or by introducing a setup wizard. The next one is when the usage numbers are low, it's worth checking if the feature can be easily reached from all the appropriate contexts and that it is performant. And the last example is about feature errors and the fact that it's very easy to monitor them and investigate the problems in your solution due to the additional context that you get out of the box with feature telemetry. So let's just go through those examples that I just mentioned. What can you do when you have the data? So you can see when the discovery numbers are low, you can do some actions. When the setup numbers are much lower than the discovery numbers, when the usage numbers are low, when there are feature errors. All those things you can actually use to figure out how to improve your solution. All right. Hopefully now I have convinced you that it is a good idea to use feature telemetry. Now let's talk about what is actually the solution. How would you go about implementing it? What is feature telemetry? There is actually no magic behind feature telemetry. It's literally just a set of well-defined custom dimensions together with a set of guidelines that will help you to achieve all sorts of goals to improve your business. Here you can see a code example of how you would actually use feature telemetry. You can see that it is extremely easy once you have done all the necessary setup. And calling it is literally just as easy as you can see on this slide. Okay, let's talk about some of the key qualities that we would want in any logging framework and the ones that we have achieved with feature telemetry. First of all, any logging framework should be easy to use. And hopefully, as you have seen on the previous slide, it's extremely easy to use. You just call the function with only the necessary parameters that you're interested in. Then the feature must be generic. No one wants to remember 10 different solutions for 10 different features and how to monitor them. With feature telemetry, you only need to remember one solution and use it for all your features. And finally, the framework should be extensible. Business Central is an extensible product and its biggest strength, so we made sure that feature telemetry is extensible as well. So we know what it is, the feature telemetry, and we know that it is useful. How would we actually get the data from feature telemetry? I will go through an example of importing and applying a configuration package. This is actually a scenario for which we have implemented feature telemetry. Once I am done with importing the package, we will actually be able to see the telemetry in application insights, and we will discuss exactly what it means. So the applying of the package is done. Let's go to application insights and see what we can get there. I will just paste a query here And I will draw your attention to some of the values that I have used here. You can see that I'm filtering to last 12 minutes. It is because I only want the recent data, but also it takes a few minutes for telemetry to get to application insights. Then I am using the category field and filtering the category to feature telemetry. So in the result, I will get all feature telemetry that is available for the last 12 minutes. Let me run this query. Okay, so now I see all the different stages I have gone through when importing and applying a configuration package. You can see that it has been discovered, set up, and used. But also you can see all these custom dimensions. It seems like there are a lot of values there. Can we actually expand it and see them in all separate columns? Indeed we can. So what I want to do now is to navigate to our BC Tech GitHub repo, where we have a predefined query that you can use that extends the fields from custom dimensions and sets them in separate columns when you see them in application insights. I will just copy this query and paste it in application insights. We'll also change the period to the same time, 12 minutes. Now you can see all the necessary fields in separate columns. For example, you can see the feature name is configuration packages, as expected. We can see that the app name that includes configuration packages is base application. We can see the application version, which in this case is 19.5, and all sorts of other environmental parameters that you get out of the box with feature telemetry. All right. Let's say now that you are not fully comfortable with writing Kusta queries and using application insights in this kind of very developer-ish experience. There is a way to connect application insights data to a business intelligence tool, Power BI. What you want to do is to navigate to the API Access tab in Application Insights. You will have the field application ID here filled in with some data. For the next step, you will actually need to download Power BI Desktop to work with the files we have provided. Power BI Desktop is a tool that can visually explore your data through a free-form drag-and-drop canvas. So it's an extremely good tool for what we want to achieve. You can download it from powerbi.microsoft.com. Once you have installed Power BI, you can navigate to our BC Tech GitHub repo again and download the feature usage Power BI template. When you open the template, you will be prompted to enter a parameter, app ID, and it is the same parameter that you have copied in one of the steps before from application insights. When the loading is complete, you should be able to see a view similar to the one on the current slide, where different features have different values in some columns. So let me just guide you through some of the columns you see on the screen. So the feature column is actually the feature name that you have defined. For an example before, we would have had configuration packages here as an example of the feature name. Current MAT, it's a value of monthly active tenants. Being a monthly active tenant means that this tenant executed at least one event or has gone through one scenario within the last month. So the current MAT is what we have right now. The MAT growth is the growth percentage between the current MAT and the MAT last month. Then we have the MAT trend, which is basically a line chart of the value of MAT over the past period of time. And the last column is the uptake funnel. And this is actually when you can see what number of users have discovered your feature, what number have set it up, and what number has used. That's also the place where you would see the biggest differences between some of these columns. Let's move to the next section, conventions. Why do we need conventions? In essence, feature telemetry is just regular telemetry with some extra data. So as I said before, there is no magic behind it. What really makes it powerful is when it's used according to the recommended conventions. Let me just mention some of the most important conventions that you would want to follow when using feature telemetry. Any given feature should only emit uptake feature telemetry in the following order: discovered, setup, and used. State discovered should be registered when pages related to the given feature are opened, or otherwise when a user intentionally seeks information about a feature. So this aligns with the logical concept of what you would call discovering a feature. State setup should be registered when the user performed a setup of the feature, usually right after a record in the table related to the feature is added or updated. And finally, state used should be registered when a user attempts to use the feature. But here you should note the difference with the call to log usage within feature telemetry. This call should only be called if the feature is used successfully. So these two calls to log uptake used and log usage will often be close together. Let's go through an example. Since we have used configuration packages before, let's see where we have placed telemetry for configuration packages. When the configuration packages page is opened, we register state discovered. So that's what we have called before in our guidelines. When the package is imported, we register state setup. Now you actually can notice here that this deviates from the normal guidelines. We say that the state setup we register when the setup table is populated or updated. But importing a package is as close to setting up a feature for configuration packages as it can be, and it makes sense. So here you can actually see the power of feature telemetry because it is so flexible and can be expanded to multiple scenarios where it makes sense. And finally, when the user confirms that they want to apply the package, we register state used. So that's the last uptake state that we register. After that, if the package is applied successfully, we call log usage to register successful usage of the feature. Using feature telemetry in your own solution. You have already seen how you would query the telemetry from the features defined by Microsoft. But how would you approach sending feature telemetry from your own features? Let me guide you through an example. So I have created a new empty app here, and I will add a file. The first thing I want to do here is to implement a telemetry logger interface. So I will add a code unit, let's say my telemetry logger. An important thing to remember here is that you should only implement a telemetry logger interface once for your entire solution, so once per publisher. You don't need to, and you shouldn't do it in multiple apps. So the telemetry logger interface includes only one function called log message. This function has parameters that are identical to the parameters of the system function called session.logMessage. And everyone who has been dealing with telemetry in the past can recognize them. For example, event ID is the unique identifier of the telemetry message. Message is a human-readable text, verbosity level, data classification, and so on. This is a required step because the telemetry will always go to the application insights account of the app that has called session.logMessage. So we cannot avoid having third-party extensions implement this interface. But this actually gives you a lot of flexibility because you don't actually have to always just pass the parameters to session.logMessage. What you could do is, for example, filter the feature telemetry to only the features you care the most about. Or you can even go as far as to implement an alternative way of logging. For example, you can write feature telemetry to a file. There is also one more step required for us to complete the implementation of telemetry logger, and it is registering it within system application. So feature telemetry is a system module, and we want to say that for this publisher, you should use this implementation of the telemetry logger. And again, it is a required step. Here, you actually shouldn't modify anything, and this will be the same for any publisher who wants to implement feature telemetry. we just want to subscribe to this unregistered telemetry logger event and add your logger in the register function. Now we have completed building the implementation. Let's add a sample feature, and I will do it through a page. Let's say we have our whole feature is having some action on a page that does a certain process. So I will just paste here a generic page that has a field that doesn't do anything, but it has an action. And this is actually a code example that you have seen before as well. We use the code unit feature telemetry directly here. There is no more magic involved for doing it for third-party extensions compared to first-party extensions. And you can see the parameters we have used. The first one is a unique identifier. The second one is the name of the feature. And the third one is the name of the scenario that has been performed. Okay, so now I have built and installed this app in my Business Central instance. And let's go through the demo scenario. We will just navigate to the page and call the action. Let's navigate back to Application Insights and use the same query we have used before. Here you can see already that the fields are populated exactly as intended. So the feature name is sample feature, the way we called it, and the event name is action name is performed. But you can also see all the great context information that comes with feature telemetry as well. For example, the caller application version is 1.0, and the client type was web client, and so on. So this is the power of feature telemetry, that you get all this information. We have now discussed how you can just use the feature, but how would you actually extend it? Feature telemetry supports one way of extensibility, and it is adding new common custom dimensions. So what it actually means is that, as you have seen before, we provide a lot of context information with each message. But if you want to have even more information, or you want to emit information specific to your solution, you can do it by extending feature telemetry. And the only thing you need to add in this case is a subscriber to the onAdd common custom dimensions event. This subscriber just allows the system application module to know for which publisher, which custom dimensions should they add. The only things to remember here is that the names of the new added common custom dimensions cannot clash with the ones defined in Microsoft first-party apps. And also that you should always remember to only emit system metadata when you send telemetry to Application Insights. In this example, I will add a new common custom dimension. Let's say I'm interested in adding the current server session ID. And I can do it by calling the system function called session ID. The only thing that I need to add here is the format call, so that it's converted to text. I have built and installed this new version of the app, and let's just go through the same demo scenario again. I will invoke the action name action. Now we can navigate back to Application Insights, and this time I actually want to modify the query. I'm adding the server session field here, because we have added a new common custom dimension. The only thing to remember here is when we are adding these common custom dimensions, they are prefixed with lowercase al. And so this is the way you would define a new custom dimension and query it from Kusta query language. Let's run this query and see if, of course, let's first add it to the projected columns and run this query. So now we see the current server session when the telemetry was emitted. This is the last section of today's presentation, but also a very important one. So what are some low-code, no-code applications of feature telemetry? I will guide you through a few examples. The first example is setting up an alert in the Azure portal. It's a classic example that a lot of partners are already using. but now we can also do it with feature telemetry, and it also gives you some new information that you can work with. So I will navigate to the alerts section in Application Insights. I will click Create and Alert rule. As a signal type, I will use log and the service Application Insights. Here I can define any Custo query that I want, but we are interested right now in feature telemetry, and more specifically in feature telemetry errors. You see, I forgot to define the table, its traces. So you have a lot of power here as well. You could filter to feature errors only from some specific features, or you could add some additional logic here, for example, to process the error message and only count the telemetry from the messages you're interested in. But for the purpose of today's demo, let's just leave it simple and generic. We want to track all feature errors. And I can actually see that in the last 8 hours, there was one feature error in one of the tenants this Application Insights resource is connected to. I will continue editing the alert. And here you can see that the Azure portal actually provides you with a lot of flexibility to customize this alert. You can, for example, change the aggregation granularity, and you can also change the threshold. For example, how many errors do you want to tolerate before triggering an alert? So this is an extremely powerful tool, and you can make it suit your needs the best. The next example I want to show you is within Power BI. And here I will show you two features that are available on any line charts that will allow you to project the future usage of your solution. And it's extremely simple to do. I will just select my line chart. Let's say my data looks wavy like this. And I will go and enable the trend line feature. Here we can see a clear upward trend, which like we can also kind of see with this wavy pattern, but it's good to see really the angle at which the trend line is going. So it's very useful. The next thing that I'm going to try is to enable the forecasting feature. And we can see that Power BI will automatically project how, based on previous data, my business is supposed to grow in the future, with some tolerance range around it. The last demo for today is about key influencers feature in Power BI. Here we can choose any measure we want. In this case, let's say it's monthly active users. And I will start adding a lot of different fields that come out of the box with feature telemetry. Then Power BI will try to explain the growth in the measure by some values inside these parameters. So now that the analysis is complete, let's see what are the key influencers for our demo example. In this case, we can actually see that the feature workflows was the biggest driver of MAU percentage-wise for our data. We can also see that paid tenants drive MAU in the upward direction, and production tenants, and so on. So just knowing these key influencers can allow you to focus your business on these very important categories, for example, of features, so that you promote them more, and this will allow you to accelerate the growth of your business. Let's just quickly recap what we have seen now. What insights can you draw with low code, no code? You can set up a monitor in Azure portal. You can use the trend line and forecasting features in Power BI. And finally, you can use the key influences feature in Power BI. So let's take a look at the conclusions for today's session. First of all, feature telemetry is a new system application module available from version 19.1 that allows you to easily monitor feature usage. Using feature telemetry will allow you to make well-informed, proactive, and reactive actions to help your business thrive. The help resources for feature telemetry can be found at github.com/Microsoft/BCTech under this folder Samples, App Insights, AL, Feature Telemetry. Thank you for your attention.